Hey there, so we got a bright sunny day at Raleigh City Farm, but we have some frost in the forecast. We did have a borderline frost a few weeks ago, and it turned out to not really freeze here, but we have some forecast temperatures in the low 30s coming up this week, and I know for you guys further north, it's much colder, and you probably already have snow, but here we have a much longer growing season. So today we're gonna try to start getting ready for that, and I wanna talk to you guys a little bit about some of the decisions that you have to make when you're getting to the end of your season and before the first frost. So one of the easiest things you can do to prepare for a frost is just harvest everything that you can harvest. And sometimes when you're trying to push your season really far, it's tough because some things may not be ready because you never know when the frost is gonna come. So for example, we have this bed over here of beets, and some are sizing up pretty well, some are still a little bit too small, but what we're gonna do, instead of trying to cover it and make sure that they survive, we're just gonna harvest them and put them in the fridge. So that's always another option. We have a couple other beds out here that we're probably gonna do the same thing too, just because we have limited amount of row cover, and we can only do so much. We're just trying to push the season as far as we can. We're also at the point now, we're gonna do one more farm stand. We're doing a pop-up right before Thanksgiving, and so that is a reason we're trying to save as much from the field as possible. So we are gonna cover some beds with row cover. We'll show you what that looks like. All right, so row cover is definitely an option out in the field. I personally hate row cover. I hate managing it, and I feel like it just rips when you look at it funny. And it just, I don't know, I just don't like using it. We do have some on the farm here from when we were using it as pest protection against the rabbits that were eating some of our small seedlings. So we do have some, and we have 10-foot wide sections, so we can cover 2 beds at a time. Kind of makes it handy. And we're just gonna use these wire hoops here every so often, and these are just pieces of metal, pieces of wire. I got these from Dubois a couple years ago, but if I find other links for them, I'll leave them down below for you to check out. So we put them out here. We'll cover this with row cover, and as I said, it's not a great solution. It takes a lot of management, and the row cover tends to fall apart. It doesn't last very long. So I do tend to try to get most of the production in the tunnel if I can, but we have some stuff out here we like to protect against a light frost, so we're gonna do that today. We got some of the beds strategically covered, and that we covered the best looking stuff out here and the stuff we wanted to save. I think most of what we covered is good, and we're not letting that much go otherwise. We did harvest those beets and some tatsoi, and we should be in good shape with the amount of row cover that we have. And it looks like after a couple days from now, we should be through the cooler weather and it starts to warm up a little bit, and at least we'll be good for a little while after that. So one thing I want to mention that a lot of people forget about is making sure that you're draining your water out of any irrigation lines. You don't want things to freeze, because that's when you have valves that break, pumps that split, seals that happen, like all that damage can happen when things freeze. So I'm going to go through and try to drain out some of the irrigation stuff. So you want to make sure that you get all the water out of your lines, or at least as much as you can, so that if things freeze and they expand, they don't break things. Now, I'm not super concerned about the overhead lines because these aren't actually under pressure at the moment, because this is open at the top where the water comes out. So this isn't under pressure, but there is water in the line. So when I designed this system, at the end of each line, I always put a valve here. And this valve does 2 things. One is it allows you to flush out the line when you first hook it up, and it also allows you to drain it out. So I just, before it freezes or over the winter, I definitely open this up and get as much of the water out as I can. It's just a simple thing to add for a couple bucks, and just makes your life so much easier, because if it does warm up a bunch and we need to do a quick irrigation, we just close the valves and turn it back on. So I gotta drain a couple more things at the timer setup, and then also in the greenhouse. Over at the water timer center, or irrigation center over here, I don't even know what we call this. I just wanna make sure that we get all the water out of the filters. So we got these 2 opened up and drained, and then our main filter here. And I'll probably just leave that open so that, if there is any water in there and it freezes, then it won't expand. The spigot over here is shut off, but we're just gonna disconnect those just to get the water out, and it should be good. And then we gotta deal with the greenhouse, but this really doesn't take more than a few minutes. I'm in the greenhouse now, and I have these same valves at the ends of my drip lines as well. So again, even though the drip is not under pressure, because the drip lines will get deflated as soon as you turn it off, I do open these up just as a good precaution. Over here, this is where the water comes into our greenhouse. We'll make sure we disconnect all this stuff, and then we just gotta disconnect the pump and make sure that that doesn't have any problems. And then that's good. It probably shouldn't take more than, 5 or 10 minutes for all the little stuff on this farm. We just gotta remember what it is so we can do the opposite before we have to irrigate. Pretty simple. Also remember to do this on your house too. Make sure you take your hoses off your spigot. I've learned it the hard way. That was a long time ago. I'll never let that happen again. So over here by the pump, we're just gonna turn the water off that comes from the tank. And then there's a filter in here, and we're just gonna pop that out, and that'll keep it open so that if anything freezes, it has somewhere to go. One thing I can't stress enough is having frost-free hydrants around the farm. And if you don't know what these are, they're great because all the plumbing is down deep enough, and depending on where you are, the frost level is gonna be different. but when you close the valve, it releases all the water in the standpipe here and underground into some gravel so that it can't freeze and break because it's actually emptied itself out of water. And then these, we just disconnected them and left the valves open so if anything freezes, it has a place to go. And I think that's pretty much it for our prep right now at the farm. We will see how it goes over the next few days, and I'll let you guys know. So it's a couple days later, and we had a couple of chilly nights. I don't think we got a frost yet, though. Last night was in the mid-30s, I think. Maybe somewhere around there, I don't know. But we got a little bit lucky because it was really windy the last couple days, and you guys can see that some of the row cover did not stay on. And you guys know it's just a challenge to keep row cover down. You can never have enough weight on it. But I think we were okay because we didn't get cold enough. And so right now, we are harvesting what we can out of the field and really prioritizing the field harvest over what's in the tunnel so that if we do have a frost and we lose any crops, we got as most of the yield we can out of the field. And I think that strategy is important at this time of year. And the other part is I don't stress about the stuff in the tunnel getting too big because things are growing pretty slowly right now. One of the benefits about growing in the wintertime is that the crops don't grow very quickly, which usually is not a benefit, but in the wintertime you have a lot more flexibility with harvesting and production because if you miss it 1 week or whatever, it's like not going to be a problem the next week because it won't be too big. So that's sort of the strategy going on today. We should be getting some temperatures down into the 20s overnight tonight, so I think we will definitely have a frost tonight, so we'll wrap things up and get things ready for that. We got a couple really nice beds of lettuce, a couple nice beds of kale, and we got those peppers that are still cranking from the summer. I'll get to those in a second, but one thing I want to mention, in the wintertime, you want to make sure that you're ventilating your greenhouse because of two reasons. One is a lot of humidity will get trapped in here, and that can be a problem for fungal issues, so you want to make sure you're venting your greenhouse during the day. Also, greenhouses can get a lot warmer than you think they will in the wintertime. They heat up quickly as soon as the sun heats them, and you want to make sure it doesn't get too warm in here. And the other thing is you want to make sure on cold nights that you close up the greenhouse a little bit before the sun goes down to try to trap as much heat as possible in here. And so those are some of the things you want to think about going on the greenhouse. Also, tonight it's supposed to get pretty cold for us, and so I'm kind of worried about the peppers because they're on the outside bed. So we're going to harvest those a little bit harder than usual, and so if we lose the plants, we get as much harvest as possible. If we don't, we'll just wait for it to come back. So you want to think about that too. This is a single wall greenhouse, so obviously the edge beds will be the cooler beds on the cold nights. Also want to take a minute here to give a shout out to John at Farmstand Revival who sent me this sweet hoodie. And John runs a farm marketing business, but also has an awesome Instagram account where he promotes other small farmers. Satin Hill Farm was featured, Raleigh City Farm has been featured, along with a lot of amazing farmers out there. And so I'd recommend go checking out the Instagram, and also I'll leave a link down below if you want to check out the swag that he's selling. And another interesting fact about John is that I talked to John right before I started a YouTube channel, and he was like trying to convince me to do it. So you can give John some credit for giving me a little bit of a kick of enthusiasm as well. So thanks, John. Well, I didn't think we had gotten a frost last night, but looking around, I just noticed that the elephant ears are definitely not happy, and that always happens even when you get a light frost. So I got everything covered out in the field. Hopefully it's nice and secure. I'm gonna go close up the greenhouse, and we'll see in a couple days and let you know how it went. It's been a couple days, and we definitely got a frost 2 nights ago, and last night it got pretty cold too. But I think we did okay. I think the covering did all right, so I'm gonna uncover this and we'll check out how these 2 beds did. Well, these 2 beds look great. We got the mustard greens and the tatsoi. These look like they did fine in the frost, so the row cover definitely worked. I'm glad to see that the stuff we protected did well and survived. We're gonna do one last pop-up farm stand for Thanksgiving week, and so we're trying to save some stuff for that. And then after that, we'll be going into full donation and winter mode, which I talked about in that other video. And I'm just really happy to see that this stuff made it, and we'll have a good harvest. And if you guys are further north than me, you guys probably already have snow on the ground. You're probably thinking, yeah, right, Josh. First frost in mid to late November. And it's true. I mean, we're in North Carolina, and we have a very long growing season, and that's a good thing and a bad thing sometimes. And someone asked me before, like, where would you live if you could live anywhere to farm? I said, probably further north, because then your season's a little bit shorter, and it's nice when nature says, hey, you got to take a break right now. And so here, you can pretty easily grow all year round with a little bit of protection, and so your season just kind of rolls from one year to the next. And so sometimes it's nice to have a shorter season. But this is what we got here, and if you're further south, you guys have even more potential to grow all year round. And so right now, as I said, going into winter mode, we're planting as many cover crop beds as we can, and that's what we're working on today, is trying to plant more of these beds into cover crops and prepare for next season, and try to put the farm at least active in terms of biology, but in terms of production, to rest for the winter, at least as many beds as we can. And you can see the cover crop behind me. This is the first group of beds that we did, is doing awesome. So that's what I got for you guys today. Hopefully you enjoyed this. Thanks so much for watching. Make sure you hit subscribe if you're not already, and we'll see you in the next one.